The International AIDS Candlelight Memorial, held on the third Sunday of May every year, is not only an opportunity to remember the people we have lost, but also to honor those who have dedicated their lives to helping people living with and affected by HIV, and to continue to mobilize our communities in solidarity. People living with HIV started the International AIDS Candlelight Memorial in 1983, and since then there have been thousands of events organized across the world by community-based organizations. From motorbike rallies by women living with HIV to uplifting ceremonies in places of worship and workplaces, such events have helped raise awareness about HIV and, more importantly, have helped break down the stigma within our communities. The International AIDS Candlelight Memorial is also a campaign to mobilize communities and raise social consciousness about HIV and AIDS. The International AIDS Candlelight Memorial serves as an important platform for global solidarity, breaking down barriers of stigma and discrimination and giving hope to new generations. In 2021, the Patoka Valley HIV and AIDS Community Action Group has created this video to remember 3 individuals and to encourage people to volunteer and to continue to make a difference.
The Patoka Valley AIDS Community Action Group has been made up of many dedicated, interested individuals over its 30-year history. At least 3 of our longtime board members have lost brothers to HIV and AIDS in the 90s. One of our board members, however, served boldly and honorably as he himself was battling his HIV diagnosis. Terry Underhill of the French Lick community returned to Indiana in the mid-90s after he became ill with HIV and AIDS. Terry was married with 4 children, was a Navy veteran, and really had a passion for speaking out and advocating for persons with AIDS. Terry became an active board member and participated in numerous presentations telling his personal story. He sought out many businesses and people in his community to get involved in AIDS awareness and prevention. Terry just wouldn't take no for an answer. Terry was appointed to the Governor's Council of People with Disabilities by Governor O'Bannon. Terry remained very active till his health and strength wouldn't allow him to do so anymore. Terry lost his battle to AIDS in March of 2005 at the young age of 48. He is still fondly remembered by many of us. One of his legacies continues annually, as he was the founder of the Granny Annie Picnic, which is held each September at the Martin State Forest. We miss Terry greatly.
He's 3 years younger than me.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't find his obituary either. I found his death notice, but I couldn't find his obituary.
Are his parents still alive?
No. No, well, we'll talk about that. Here,
Okay.
we'll start with Ronnie.
Let's talk about a couple of the people that you'd like to remember for the AIDS Candlelight Memorial Vigil.
Well, one person that I'd like to remember, I think of him often actually, is Ronnie Blesh. He was from Holland, 3 years younger than me. His dad and my dad went to high school together. His dad and my dad were both in business, not together, but both in business here in Holland. My dad had the hardware store. His dad owned the tractor dealership here in town. Sold tractors to almost everybody in Southern Indiana. Probably knew every farmer in Southern Indiana, his father did. Well, Ronnie I think he was a buyer for J.C. Penney in Chicago. I know he was living in Chicago. And he had been ill and moved home. And I really hadn't had contact with him. Probably hadn't seen him for years. Once I left high school, he would have been probably a freshman when I was a senior, and had lost contact with him until one day I was at work at St. Joe and I saw him standing by the elevator. He was rail thin, and it took my breath away. I thought, I mean, just looking at him standing at the elevator, that's what I thought. And at the time, he had not even been tested yet. And I didn't know that, of course. He was there having some other diagnostic work done. And I think I might have said hi to him. Well, then a few weeks passed, and he came into my office. And he sat down, closed the door. He sat down, he said, Tanya, he said, I tested positive for HIV. I said, oh, Ronnie. He pulled up his pants leg. He had Kaposi sarcoma already. He was full-blown AIDS. And had just then found out that he was HIV positive. He said, my folks don't know yet. I'm going to tell them, but my folks don't know. He said, I didn't think I could get it. I'm a top. I didn't think I could get it. And so, time went on, and his parents were wonderful, gracious people, hugely caring and supportive of him in his last time of life, from the time he was diagnosed until he passed away. And his father, who, like I said, probably knew every farmer in southern Indiana, had probably sold him a tractor at some time, immediately started telling customers, Ronnie has AIDS. And really didn't take, he was just he's our son, we're going to take care of him, he's at home, we love him. They were just very matter of fact, supportive, loving, caring parents, just exactly what you would expect if a parent's child were diagnosed with leukemia or cancer or anything else. That wasn't always the case back then with HIV. It often was not the case, as a matter of fact. Oftentimes with that diagnosis, that conversation with the parents was the first time there was affirmation that the son was gay. Oftentimes, that in the same conversation there, that those realizations were happening, and families were just kicking them out. Don't bother to come home for Christmas. They were just simply kicking them out to the curb. But that was not the case with Ronnie's parents, and never was the case. In fact, as Ronnie progressed in his illness, his mother, he was getting infusions at home, and his mother learned to do that. I remember she'd call me, because they just live a couple of blocks from me, and she would call me, and I'd go up and answer her questions and do what I could do to help them out. Ronnie would go with me to schools and do education. He was tall, thin. I would say 6'3" at least. His father was tall. The men in that family were all tall. And he would go with me to the schools, and usually he would sit down in a chair. He was weak enough that he wouldn't stand for a period of time in front of a classroom. Usually he would sit down, and kind of get on the level with the students and just have a conversation. He was a soft-spoken, quiet man, very, very sweet, and very effective, I think, in talking about the disease, and talking about prevention, and talking about the stigma, that surrounded HIV and AIDS at the time. And I felt very blessed that I was able to be a part of his life there at the end. He was quite a young man, and his parents were just incredible people. His father passed away. His mother passed away a couple of years ago, and then his father passed away about a year ago. He was probably 92 years old when he passed. So lived a long life, and honestly, being honest with their customers did not change the success of their business. They were just loving parents, like anybody would be grateful to have. And so I think it's important to remember Ronnie. I think about him often. I really do.
And let's talk about the other Ronnie.
Okay. So another person that really I've always been glad was in my life was Ronnie Vaughn. I knew him, actually, I knew Ronnie Vaughn. He worked as an orderly at the hospital. I didn't know him well at that time, but I knew him. And then when we started the CAG in 1991, he was there that first day. He came in dressed to the nines, tie, shirt, white shirt and tie, clean cut, nice looking, friendly young man. Had no idea that he was HIV positive. I think he knew at that point, but he had not told really anyone at that point. But he would go out and do education with me in the schools. He went out on his own some. He was willing to be the face of AIDS here in Du Bois County. The Herald did a large article on him with a picture of him. He was involved in the drama clubs and, did drama with the plays and stuff like that. I found out that Ronnie was HIV positive probably in July of 91 when Judy Hunter was getting ready to leave the CAG. I spent a day with her, just her downloading all of her resources to me. And she told me, I think maybe Ronnie even came into her office and they told me then that he was HIV positive. Judy had known. So that was kind of, the first person that I knew that was HIV positive, that I knew personally, because I'd been working with him for a few months with the CAG and I had known him before then. So, personally that had an impact on me. And I had to watch him, as his disease progressed, and as he struggled with that, as he struggled with relationships, as his family struggled. His mother was very active in our Mothers and Others group. I think maybe a couple of his sisters might have been too, but I remember his mom saying that when Ronnie became the public face of HIV in Du Bois County, she said, I decided that what HIV stood for is hell in Belpin. They lived in Belpin, Indiana. And so, I think that demonstrates what she had to deal with then, the stigma from other people in that. Holland is a small town, Belpin's even smaller, probably 100 or 2 people, 200 people. And I'll never forget her saying that, hell in Belpin is what HIV stands for. But anyway, Ronnie did a lot of good in his final years. He did a lot of education. He was active in the state. He had a lot of personal struggles that he had to deal with. But he opened up the conversation, very much so here in the county. And he made it obvious that here's somebody local that it absolutely affects local people here in the county. And I think it's interesting that people think not, but there's been a number of Du Bois County people who have been infected and died, and I think there's still some stigma locally, actually. I know of people who are full-blown AIDS who are actually healthy, thanks to the retrovirals that are available now, but they're not open about it because they don't want to deal with the repercussions. They just want to live their life, and be healthy and happy and move on. And in many ways, that's kind of a sad statement, but Ronnie didn't worry about any of that. Ronnie was kind of an in-your-face kind of guy, could be. Not everybody was happy with what Ronnie had to say to him, but he really played an important role in the early days of our CAG. And I know his family supported him. They did not abandon him at all. They cared about him lovingly, and in fact, I was actually doing a little bit of research through the local paper to see if I could find some information that would spark some memories, and I found a little in memoriam that his family had put in the paper 2 years after he passed away about what a beautiful person the earth lost when Ronnie passed. And so I think that's a testament to how loving they were toward Ronnie. He's been gone now since 2002, so almost 19 years since he passed. Very emotional funeral. I remember how emotional his funeral was because he had touched a lot of people. Touched a lot of people.
Perfect. Thank you.